All right, old school NBA fans, self-research, NBA facts. Got another video for you. As always, thanks to anybody who watches my videos, subscribes to my channel. I really appreciate it. Special thanks goes out to my man, G the Great. Thanks for the super thanks. I really appreciate it. Your generosity is very welcome. Thank you. A couple guys in the comments say that, oh, you're not providing the proper context or whatever. You know, usually it's LeBron fans crying and moaning because whatever it is doesn't shine a good light on LeBron. And, you know, that's not my fault. You know, this guy, the media, and you fans, you think he's the GOAT, right? That's my biggest issue right there. Okay? If it's not opinion-based is whatever. You take it with a grain of salt. But if it's fact, then the GOAT should be able to stand up to any scrutiny. Anything. Whatever you say, it should hold up because he's the GOAT, right? So it never made sense to me why people would get so defensive and whatever. It's like, you guys think he's the GOAT. So that means that anything, any kind of criticism should, you know what I mean? He should stand up to whatever, like whatever it is, he should be at the top or near the top, but he's not because he's not the GOAT. That right there should tell you everything you need to know. I mean, find me a flaw about Michael Jordan's game, his resume. Go ahead, make a video about it. You can make some opinion about, oh, his finals competition was weak. He had a super team. Da-da-da-da. Those are all opinions that have no base on anything. Give me some facts. Tell me. I'm all ears. Give me the weaknesses. Give me the flaws. Give me the holes in his resume. I'm listening. What do you got? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, to this video here, which is simply about the all-time greats. Now, I left out the old school players, and I know some of you guys don't even acknowledge the old players, don't want to hear about the old players, so you're in luck. This one doesn't have to do with anybody before the merger, but because it just doesn't apply. This is about, in each player's division, who had the most 50-win teams in their division, okay? Now, that impacts your seeding. It shows who you're competing against to win your division. All those things matter, especially for the players in the 70s and 80s, because you had to play these guys more than what you have to play now. But even still, to this day, you play every team in your division 4 times each. Teams in the other divisions within the conference is either 3 or 4. And then in the other conference, you only play them twice. But for sure, you're going to play each team in your conference 4 times each. So you're definitely going to play them the most. So who's in your division matters. It mattered more in the 90s, the 80s even more, and it mattered in the 70s a lot too. So I'm going to get right into it. So Nikola Jokic, in his 9 years he played, he's had 9 50-win teams in his division. So that's an average of 1 per year. Okay, whatever. Probably about average. Giannis Antetokounmpo, in his 11 years, he's only had 8 50-win teams, which that's actually not a lot. David Robinson, in his 14 years, 22 50-win teams. That is a decent amount of teams right there. Kevin Durant, 16 years played, 16 50-win teams. So, you know, for all the talk of how tough the West was and all that, it was from, say, like the very, very late 90s. It started swinging pretty heavy, like 1999, really. It started swinging pretty heavy to the West. Now, in the, like, say, mid to late 90s in there was some really good teams in the West, but there was also some bad teams. There was kind of a top-heavy conference. But it started to just be a powerhouse in the early 2000s, you know, all the way until, you know, probably around 2000 8, 9, somewhere around there. And, it wasn't as many, like 58, 60, 62 win teams, just not as many. There was a lot of like mid 50s, whatever. And then by the time like 2013, 14 rolled around, you could see that there really wasn't as many really good teams in the West, but the East continued to be the weaker conference. There's no doubt about it. By the end of the 2010s, the East had actually gotten much better. There was better teams like Toronto, you had Milwaukee, Philly was actually pretty decent there for a little while. There was, a few actually decent teams into 2020 even. But then it shifted to the West again. Like right now, the West is clearly the best conference. The East does have a couple really good teams, but it's clearly the West is the better conference. There's no doubt about it. But with that being said, you would think with the West being as tough as it, was, that Kevin Durant would have played more than just, one per year when he spent all those years in the West. And he played in both divisions. You know what I mean? He played in the, what was it? Well, he definitely played in the Pacific Division when he played for Golden State. And then I'm trying to remember what it is. I don't think is it the Southwest Division where OKC is in? I think it might be. Anyway, so he's only getting one per year. So whatever. Kevin Garnett. Now he played, most of it in the West, but he did play a decent portion in the East. In his 21 years played, he had 20 50-win teams for a .952%. So just less than one team per year in his division winning 50 or more games. Karl Malone, in his 19 years, he had 27 50 or more win teams. That's a lot, 1.421. And Karl Malone played in the same division as David Robinson did. That was like Dallas and Houston, San Antonio, Utah, trying to think of the other, Denver. That's who was in that division there. Steph Curry, same thing. In 15 years played, 15 50 or more win teams for only one a year. To me, that's just not as high as it was in the earlier 2000s. And you're going to see when I get there what I'm talking about. I believe that the 2000s West was definitely much tougher than the 2010s West. Now, that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but I think they were much better. Now, the 2010s West was still the better conference than the East, but I just didn't think the NBA as a whole was all that great after probably like 2012. There was a good chunk of 7-8 years. I just didn't think the NBA was all that great. I just didn't. There was one really good team, and then there was a couple of very good teams, and that's it. I mean, there just was not a plethora of good teams. Okay, and it was like that in the 80s too. It's not a knock, it's just what it was. The 80s had 3 teams that were going to win the championship every year from 1980 to 1988. It's just how it was. I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad. Obviously, it's bad for the fans if you're not a fan of one of those 3 teams. Just like in the mid-2010s, if you weren't a fan of Golden State, chances are you probably weren't going to win, especially after they acquired Kevin Durant. That's just how it was. Okay, Moses Malone, in his 17 years he played, he had 19 50 or more win teams in his division, 1.117. So that's, pretty good. Dr. J, in his 11 years in the NBA, did not include the ABA, because again, the divisions are all out of whack in the ABA. And plus they played, instead of 82-game schedule, they played an 84-game schedule. So it's not exactly the same thing. The percentage and all that. And also, it's not just a 50-plus win team in your division, but also, or the equivalent. I included the equivalents. Like some people don't do that when they, trying to make a narrative or a point. Like I've heard before about, Nikola Jokic never beat a 50-win team. Well, yeah, that's technically true, but, there was some that were, at least one that I know of that was on pace to win 50 games. So anyway, but yeah, they didn't actually win 50. That's true. But, and no, that isn't the same thing. There's no guarantee they were going to win 50, but, close enough. Anyway, okay, LeBron James, in his 21 seasons, he's had 15 50 or more win teams in his division for a percentage of .714. That's the lowest on the list so far. Shaquille O'Neal, in his 18 years, he has 17 50 or more win teams in his division for a .944. So that's probably about right in the middle. Tim Duncan definitely had a lot. Like I said, he was dealing with Dallas and Houston and Denver. I mean, there was just, a lot of teams. OKC later on. There was a lot of teams that were winning 50 games. In his 19 years, 33 teams won 50 or more games in his division. 1.736. That's really high. That's a lot. Akeem Olajuwon, 17 years, 27 50 or more win teams in his division for a 1.588. Also very high. And again, he was dealing with Utah, San Antonio. I think in the late 80s, Dallas was pretty good. They, that would have been some 50-win teams. He dealt with quite a few, that's for sure. Like Utah and San Antonio, just those two teams won 50 games almost the whole 90s, basically. Larry Bird, in his 13 years, he had only 11 50-win teams. And that's a percentage of .846. Now, granted, he had a lot of 60-win teams because Philly was in there, or like high 50s, like 57, 58, 59, that kind of thing. Philly was definitely the main one. And then later on, I think, maybe the Knicks had a couple or something. But anyway, not super high, but that was just his division. The other division within the East was very tough. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, in his 20 years, only 18 50 or more win teams. That's a 900 winning percentage. It's okay, probably in the middle, somewhere around that. Kobe Bryant, in his 20 years, he played 26 50-win teams. That comes to 1.3. That's a decent amount right there. Magic Johnson, in his 13 years, I included 1996. I included everybody's years, no matter if, if they were injured, whatever. If they played at all, I counted it, just for the purposes of this video. Okay. Magic, 13 years, 12 50 or more win teams. That's .923. Again, probably right around the middle. Michael Jordan, in his 15 years played, 25 50-win teams, 1.666. That is the second highest behind only Tim Duncan. So, if you were to rank them, obviously, like I said, Tim Duncan, he had the toughest division of all the all-time, the modern, since the merger, all-time greats. Second is Michael Jordan. He had the second toughest division in the course of his career of any all-time greats. Third, Akeem Olajuwon. Olajuwon had the third hardest division since the merger. Fourth, David Robinson. He had the fourth one. I mean, again, you had Utah, you had Houston. There was tough teams in his division, period. Again, here's another one, Karl Malone. See, these guys all had to play each other. David Robinson, Karl Malone, and Olajuwon all played each other through the whole 90s and even into the 80s with Malone and Olajuwon. Okay. Sixth, Kobe Bryant. So he's in about the top third, which you would expect. He had tough competition his whole way through. There's just no doubt about it. And then number 7 was Moses Malone. He's number 7. Had a tough division. You always had Boston to deal with. And then later on, the Central Division, you would have had the Bulls, the Cavaliers, all that kind of thing. Now, there's a few guys that are tied for 8th because they had one. So this is about the middle. Right here, these are your middle. Nikola Jokic is one of them. Kevin Durant is another one. Steph Curry is another one. Dr. J is another one. So there's a few right there. There's 8, 9, 10, and 11. So number 12 is Shaq. Is number 12. Okay. Number 13 is Magic. He's 13. Okay. So obviously, Magic didn't have, the best one or anything, but close enough. Kareem right behind Magic at 14. You got Larry Bird behind Kareem at 15. And again, this is the division. This is not the be-all, end-all of anything, but it does go to show who had tough divisions. And you had to beat these teams out to get the higher seed. And also, a lot of these teams, especially the older players, you had to play them 6 times a year. It was tough. Number 16 out of 17 players is Giannis. And would you believe, guess who number 17 is? That's right, LeBron James. He has the weakest division opponents as far as 50-win teams. He had the fewest of every great on this list. Go fact check me. Go do it yourself. You tell me if you don't come to the same result. Now, here's what I find interesting. There's 2 things very interesting. Okay, Michael Jordan, if you look at him just on the Bulls, only when he played on the Bulls, he comes to 1.84 50-win teams per year in his division. That's more than Tim Duncan at 1.736. Because he played those 2 years on the Wizards, there was none in his division in, I think it was 03. 02, there was 1, the New Jersey Nets. So in those 2 years, he only had 1. But in 13 years, he had 24 50 or more win teams in his division. Very tough. That would have been the best since the merger of any, the most since the merger of any all-time great. Except for he played the 2 years on the Wizards, brought it down to, under Tim Duncan. Okay, fine, whatever. Now, here's what I find very funny. LeBron James. In the East, he played 15 years in the East. LeBron James would have had 8 teams in 15 years in the East. 8! That's about 1 every other year. That's Cakewalk City. That is guaranteeing you're basically getting a 3 seed or higher when you don't have anybody who's really going to compete. And that means that in the last 6 years, LeBron James has had 7. So it makes me wonder if LeBron James was in the West all those years, what really would have happened? You know what I'm saying? What really would have happened? How many playoff series would this man have won? Was he in the West? Was he in the Pacific or the Southwest Division or the Northwest Division? It would have been something to find out. I'll tell you that. I mean, there were so many, excellent teams, so many great players that were in the West. The majority of the 50-win teams, the majority of the All-NBA players, they were in the West. That's why when you won the West and then, won a championship out of the West, it kind of meant more. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like in the 80s, when Boston or Philly or even Detroit later on, when they won one, it meant more because it was harder to get out of the East. But anyway, that's all I got for this video. Again, there is no context needed on this stuff. You guys are crying about context. Fill in the context by all means. All this is it's the same format for everybody. How many 50-win teams did you have in your division in your career? That's it. No tricks, no narratives, no nothing. That's it. That's all it is. But like I said, LeBron James had 8 in 15 years in the East. I mean, that is a joke. That's barely half. And Michael Jordan, his years on the Bulls, he's almost at 2 per year. So this guy's at basically 0.5 or maybe like 0.55 or whatever in his time in the East. And Jordan is at 1.84. That's 3 times as many 50-win teams in his division. If you just look at the Bulls years and you just look at LeBron James's East, he's more than triple what LeBron had to deal with. So I'm just saying. And again, I'm not trying to directly compare Jordan to LeBron, but some LeBron fans recently, shot off at the mouth and say that you don't provide any context. Well, you tell me, what context would you apply to this? I'm all ears. Let's hear it. So anyway, that's all I got for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate all your support. If you liked it, please hit the like button. And that's it for now.